This program is made possible through generous donations from viewers like you. To pledge your support, please visit aroodawakening.tv/give. Thank you.
So what happens if you're born on a leap year, on February 29th? Do you have a birthday once only every 4 years? Well, no, that's an easy fix. Just celebrate your birthday on February 28th or March 1st, right? On the Hebrew calendar, however, a leap year is not quite that simple. Every few years, a whole month is added to the calendar. That month is called Adar Bet. And it was during this time in Yeshua's ministry that an Adar Bet year happened. Now, we're going to explain how an Adar Bet year is determined, but the more important thing is that it is one of the crucial keys to the truth that the Yeshua's ministry was exactly 70 weeks. We figured tonight was the perfect time to talk about an Adar Bet because it's the end of the 6th day, the sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live!
Michael, it's going to be a great show tonight.
It will be.
Stand by, studio. 30 seconds.
Thank you. One minute's air, Michael.
Oh, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. Tonight, we are going to talk about the Messiah's final few weeks of his ministry, which involved a very interesting calendar phenomenon called an Adar Bet. That's a Hebrew term. Incidentally, it is crucial to understand what an Adar Bet is all about in order to understand the Messiah's ministry at all and what he truly came to do. So, to talk about that, please welcome my co-host for this evening, the Director of Ministry Development for Rude Awakening International, Annie Reed.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We're going to talk about Adar Bet.
I'm excited about that topic because it's something that confuses a lot of our followers in Yeshua. So, but that's for later.
Yeah, we'll save that for later because first we want to talk about Passover and the sellout that happened last week. Incredible.
What a blessing. Yah is so good to us. I mean, he just blew us out of the water. We didn't anticipate the numbers that we received. We're excited to fellowship with those 600 that will be there in person, but we're excited about fellowshipping with people online as well.
That's right, because you can watch Passover online. All you have to do is go to the same website, PassoverCharlotte.com, and we have 2 watch online packages for you. Here's how it works. $79 will get you Shabbat Night Live, which is free to everyone, by the way. But you get Shabbat Night Live, and then you also get all of the sessions on Saturday. And we're talking about David Robinson, Bill Cloud, Kent Hovind. There's so many, I'm losing track. Steve Mutria.
Josh Tolley. Now, the schedule is online at PassoverCharlotte.com where you sign up as well. Sessions start at 9 a.m. with Kent Hovind, and they actually won't end until about 10 p.m. with Michael Rood Seder.
Right, and you also get that. You get to watch that. You get to watch it, replay it, download it even if you want. So there's that option as well. Keep yourself a copy. Now, keeping a copy is part of the other package. You don't have to keep a copy because with the other package, you'll get a DVD or Blu-ray of the entire thing, and not just everything on Saturday and Shabbat Night Live and the Seder and all that. You'll also get 2 bonus discs with your set. You'll get 2 health sessions that we're having earlier on the day on Friday, which are not going to be part of the broadcast. The only people that are going to be seeing that are the people who are in studio, or if you get this $99 package. And what it is, it's Mary Toko Hovind, who is Kent Hovind's wife, and she's going to be speaking on vaccines, very hot topic, and I'm going to be talking about how to redeem your health, what to do after something goes wrong, not necessarily preventing bad things, but what happens. What do you do after something bad does happen? So I'm going to teach you how to reverse those type of symptoms. So those 2 health sessions are also on the DVD package. And again, that's only $99. You can choose the $79 or $99, whichever you want to do at PassoverCharlotte.com. And Annie, I know you like to do Passover at home in addition to celebrating with hundreds and hundreds of people.
Well, I do, but this is a good point because if you have never celebrated Passover, or if you have a handful of you that are doing Passover, you know, with me, it's my husband and I. We don't have children. My parents keep Passover, but that's really it. So it's a small group of us. So I would encourage you to do the Seder along with us on Saturday night. If you watch online with us, follow along with Michael. You know, he'll take you through the entire Seder, the significance of it. You can have all of your meals prepped, ready, and actually know a lot of fellowships that do that, like Mr. and Mrs. Wild that are in Michigan. They're going to do it along with a handful of new believers along with the Seder, which I think is just a brilliant idea for people that don't necessarily know how to keep Passover.
Right.
Look, I've been doing Passover for over 10 years, and none of them have been the same. Not for any other reason than, you know, it's different than what they did in biblical times.
Right.
We can't technically keep it, and we can't keep it under their terms, which is going to Jerusalem.
Right, and Michael keeps it different every year too. So just because you watched it last year doesn't necessarily it's going to be the same this year. In fact, I can tell you it's not going to be the same as last year because we have Catherine, who is our stage master, and she's setting up this incredible stage. And the story is going to be a little different, and there's going to be three parts to the stage. It's going to be great fun. So you've got to watch it. You've got to watch it online. Watch it with people at home. And if you're joining us at Passover, great. But if you're across the country, don't worry. You're not going to miss it. Watch with us online. And speaking of Passover, David Robinson, who is one of the guest speakers at Passover, is Michael Rood's guest tonight for episode 4 of a new series called Torah Wars, Return of the Gentiles. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. You can see the logo at the bottom of the screen.
They had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, yeah, it was just the greatest thing. So we had a lot of fun with it. You can see the logo at the bottom of the screen, and you can't have a series like this without a t-shirt. Come on, here's the t-shirt. Take a look. On the front of the t-shirt, you've got the Torah Wars, and there you can see on the back is Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker, a.k.a. Michael Rood and David Robinson. And yes, we had a lot of fun with this. We actually sent this to David when we first did it. And he said, "Oh, you're kidding, right? That's a good joke." And we said, "No, this is it. This is the real thing. This is what's going to be on the DVD and on the T-shirt." And he was just thrilled to death. So lots of fun. If you get the DVD package or Blu-ray, make sure you get the T-shirt too.
And I love when we do series like this with other teachers because they really edify. Michael and the other teachers edify one another. You know, we all come from different backgrounds. We learned Torah very differently. We all went through different walks, and it's amazing to hear testimonies, but also to hear how they're fulfilling, you know, that aspect in their lives right now, whether it's being a teacher or, you know, doing it at home.
Right. Yep. Always good to have someone else in the studio with Michael. Lots of fun. This series, if you've been watching it, it is a lot of fun, and they're answering a lot of questions. In fact, that's what starts happening here in this episode is David starts asking questions of Michael. So it's a great thing to watch. So get some of your questions answered. Something else you can get this month, and only for a few more days, in fact, is Purim, the Lazarus parable. This is Michael Rood's. Thank you. Not this way, this way. So it's the 15th episode of a 20-episode series that Michael is doing, and it all comes in a big set. You can take a look more what that's all about at our Love Gift page. You'll see that there's a cover, a slip cover you can put all of these episodes into. This one is all about Purim and how Purim ties into the story of Lazarus. So that is great. You can get that for a donation of $50 or more, or if you donate $100 or more, you'll get the teaching and the Scroll of Esther. Yes, this is the story of Esther with English on the front and Hebrew on the back. It's a great thing to have. It's a beautiful, beautiful wooden case here with a leatherette type of casing. Wonderful showpiece to have in your home and teach people about why you celebrate not Christmas and Easter, but Passover and Sukkot and Purim, and it's all kinds of great information on the teaching itself, and you can share with friends with this. So again, that is for a donation of $100 or more, and you can get it at aroodawakening.tv/lovegift or call the number on the bottom of your screen. Now, let's get into what we were talking about before, the Adar Bet. To understand more about that, we need to look at our astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. This is the old calendar that we have here. The new one is now on sale. There it is on your screen. The Renaissance Error. No, not the Renaissance Era, the Error. We did that purposefully because what we're doing is showing Renaissance paintings on each month, and then we get Michael to tell us what's right about the painting, what's wrong about the painting, and what we found out archaeologically since that painting was made. So it's a great teaching tool for friends and family to teach what the truth of the Bible is, not necessarily the tradition we see on paintings. Now, we are on the 4th and final Shabbat of the month of Adar, the 12th month on the Hebrew calendar. The 70 weeks of Yeshua's ministry are a perfect fulfillment of prophecy found in Daniel chapter 9 for one very special reason, that there's 70 weeks, and that is because there is an Adar Bet. Adar Bet is the name given to a 13th month on the ancient Hebrew calendar, and that occurs about every 3 years, kind of like our leap year is every 4 years.
Which I believe we had one last year, did we not?
We did. Indeed we did. Now, this month, as we just mentioned, is called Adar, and the word Bet is the name of the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So the word Bet is also representing the number 2. Thus, Adar Bet literally means the month of Adar, the sequel, or part 2. So, the year during which the Messiah completed most of his ministry was a year in which an Adar Bet month occurred. In fact, without that 13th month, his ministry would not have been 70 weeks from the day of his water baptism to the day that he was baptized, or his followers were baptized, that is, with the fire of the Spirit at Shavuot.
So that's how you get the 70 weeks.
That's how you
That
get
is
the
why
70
it's so
weeks.
significant.
That's right, because otherwise it would have been just about a year. So determining whether it is necessary to add an Adar Bet month depends on the state of the barley crop in Israel. If the barley is not ripe, or aviv, meaning a ripe in Hebrew for a general sense of the word, by the end of the month of Adar, a second month of Adar, which is Adar Bet, is added to the calendar to give the barley more time to mature. Now, why would you need to do that? Well, because the next month on the calendar is called Aviv, during which the spring feasts of the Lord occur. And during those feasts, there is a requirement for a first fruits offering. You've probably read that in the Bible a time or two, consisting of the first barley harvest of the year. So, if the barley is not ready, the feast cannot take place as commanded, because the barley will not be ready for harvesting and preparing as an offering. Therefore, an extra month is added to ensure that the barley can be ready for the feast the coming month. There you go. That's why we have an Adar Bet. Now, coming up, Michael Rood and David Robinson present Torah Wars, Return of the Gentiles, Episode 4. And if you like what you see, tell your friends and family to watch the replay. roodawakening.tv/Shabbat is where you'll find that. That replay is only possible because of you. Thank you for your donations over the time to this ministry. And in fact, it's the only reason you're seeing this program right now, and the only reason we can record these episodes and offer them online. We have no corporate sponsors. You make it happen, that's it. And if the scroll of Esther seems like something you could use to share the truth with friends and family, you can get it right now along with Michael's teaching on Purim and support this ministry at the same time. So here's how you can do that right now.
As the disciples prepare to commemorate Purim, the story of how Queen Esther's bravery saved the Israelites from certain death, Yeshua receives word that his friend Lazarus is gravely ill. Yet Yeshua does not come to his aid until all seems lost. Just like the story of Purim. This month, Michael Rood presents an exclusive new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable.
This is one of the many times in the Gospel of John where a scribe added in a description that was not in the original text.
Purim, the Lazarus Parable, is Michael Rood's new teaching from the 20-episode Love Gift Teaching Series. And the only way you can get it is with your Love Gift donation in March.
We have to understand what they, the scribes and Pharisees, teach. You know, they who will not see the kingdom of heaven, we have to understand what they're saying. The Torah says one thing, but how they read it can be something different.
Own Purim, the Lazarus Parable, right now when you give a Love Gift donation of $50 or more. Or donate $100 or more to get this new teaching plus the story of Esther on a scroll. A Megillah, concealed in an elegant wooden case. This scroll includes the entire biblical book of Esther, English on one side, Hebrew on the other, illustrated in full-color classic artwork. And the case features a leather-like wrap with gold embossing and a metallic seal depicting the story of Esther. Get this attractive showpiece now, plus Michael Rood's new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable.
Whatever you give away, whatever you forfeit for me, you'll receive back 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life.
Act now to get Michael Rood's new teaching, Purim, the Lazarus Parable, plus the Scroll of Esther. Hurry, this offer is only available in March. Make your love gift donation now, online or by phone.
During President Trump's State of the Union address, he recognized a Navy SEAL who died in action in Yemen, Chief Special Warfare Operator William Ryan Owens. And it was at that time that he recognized him that the President of the United States honored him in death and promoted him and announced there in front of everyone, Senior Chief. And his widow was there, Karen Owens, and it was a very moving moment in time when this woman was told, and it has been promoted out there, that her husband died for nothing. And the President of the United States, clarified the record. No, he did not die for nothing. He died in the service of his country. He died doing a very heroic act, and now she's getting recognized for it. But part of the Congress decided to do a sit-down strike right in the middle of this thing. We have with us, ladies and gentlemen, joining us, not only an American, but an Israeli, one who is very familiar with what is going on in the land of Israel, around the world, for those who are really fighting and standing against terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, again with us, we have Nehemiah Gordon. Welcome, Nehemiah. It's good to have you with us.
Shalom, Michael. It's great to be here, and I really am appreciative to Ryan Owens for the sacrifice he gave, and his wife that he went out for years. He went out to defend people against this Islamic extremist terrorism, and he eventually gave his life. And just the pettiness of talking about whether or not that specific operation in which he died got actionable intelligence or not. You don't know that until afterwards. So it doesn't even matter. Here's a man who gave his life for the country and gave his life to defend Western civilization against this evil force that's trying to kill people and is being very successful at it. And, we were talking before about an Israeli hero as a man named Sergeant Elor Azaria. And it's very tragic what happened to him. He was just recently convicted of manslaughter for shooting a terrorist dead. And it's happened on March 24, 2016. There was a terrorist attack in Hebron where two Arab terrorists wielding knives attacked an Israeli position, actually wounded Israeli soldiers. One of them was immediately shot dead. The other terrorist was mortally wounded, was laying there bleeding out, unconscious. And Sergeant Elor Azaria came along with with the reinforcements. And at first they believed that this man was dead, the terrorist. But then he shot him in the head when the terrorist moved. And this was videoed by a leftist agitator activist who then put it up on the internet. And the leftist video had no sound.
Conveniently had no sound.
Yeah, I don't know if the original had sound or not, or they took it out. I have no idea. But the way it appeared with no sound is that he shot this terrorist dead for no reason. Mm-hmm. However, so this went around the world, and the United Nations actually condemned Israel for this shooting of a wounded terrorist. They made it sound like the poor Palestinian teenager was killed. No, this was a terrorist in his 20s who had
already stabbed somebody.
He minutes before had stabbed somebody, had been mortally wounded, hadn't died yet, but was mortally wounded. They assumed that he was either, completely unconscious or near death. Elor Azaria, in his testimony, testified. He said the terrorist moved. He could have detonated a device. Now, what does he mean by that, a device? So there's a second video. And this second video, as far as I know, has never been discussed in the Western media. And that's because it's in Hebrew. And in the second video, you can clearly see that there is a man seconds before this shooting, before Elor Azaria kills the terrorist. The man shoots out in Hebrew, Yesh alav kanireh mat'en, simu lev, ad shelo ba chablan lo nogim bo, which in English is, he has an explosive vest, be careful. No one is to touch him until the bomb squad arrives. So imagine Elor Azaria is there. They think the terrorist is dead, and then somebody shouts out, don't touch him. He's got a bomb on him. He's going to blow himself up. All of a sudden, unexpectedly, the terrorist moves. Elor Azaria takes his Tavor rifle off of his, from around his head, aims and shoots and kills the terrorist in the head. But because the leftist narrative has now gone out around the world and the United Nations has condemned Israel, they decided to throw him under the bus. And what they're explaining in Israel is that there was, the Palestinians were on the verge of rioting all across Israel, and they decided to sacrifice this poor young sergeant, must have been 20 years old or so. They sacrificed him to appease the Palestinians and say, oh, okay, we killed this terrorist, but we're going to put our person in prison. And he was just convicted, 18 months. He's appealing it, but he was just convicted.
That is such a travesty. I mean, a sergeant, 20-year-old sergeant. I mean, to reach that rank at his age, he had to have a sterling character, and they ought to give him a marksmanship award. I mean, he shot him in the head, a brainstem shot, in order to stop what could have been a detonation of a bomb. This man was perfect, cool, under control, and took that shot and ended that terrorist's life, which, if it had ended before he even wounded an Israeli, that would have been better. But to then throw him under the bus, this is absolutely a travesty. I hope that really appeal goes through and they give him an award.
Right. And Michael, there was a terrorist attack on June 28th, 2016, where terrorists in the Istanbul airport opened fire on passengers and people in the airport, and they shot him, and he fell, and he looked like he was mortally wounded. And then they quietly and slowly approached him to, I guess, Mirandize him and read him his rights. And what does he do? He did what terrorists do. He blew himself up and killed more people than he had initially by opening fire. And the moral of the story is, if a terrorist is coming to kill and die, you kill him, you put him down, and do not let him kill more people. You're just stupid if you let him blow yourself up. Now, in the case of Elor Azaria, the terrorist didn't have a vest, an explosive vest, but they didn't know that.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Not only who knows, there's evidence that one of the people at the scene shouted, I mean, I heard it myself in the audio, no one is to touch him until the bomb squad arrives. So, Michael, my nephew at the time was in the Israeli army, and I want to quickly read a letter that he sent to me. And he asked me not to share this until he was released from the army because he could have gotten in trouble. Okay. But this is my nephew, Nitai, who is in the Golani Brigade, his authentic reaction to this situation. Here's what he wrote to me. He writes, "Dear Uncle, for 6 months, a storm of emotions has raged inside me following the incident with the combat soldier Elor Azaria. I don't intend to dissect the incident from a professional military standpoint. And, his basic point is, I don't know if the guy should have shot him in the head. At that time, they didn't know about the second video. But he explains his reaction. He says, I volunteered for the Golani Brigade. I know exactly what and that's an elite combat brigade in the Israeli army. I know exactly what I'm willing to sacrifice and understand why I want to do this. This is the upbringing I received at home. From a young age, it was clear to me that I would be a combat soldier. And yeah, this is no small sacrifice. My nephew, when he wrote this, was 21. Wow, when you're stuck serving and your friends get to go home, sleeping for days straight wearing your boots, trekking dozens of kilometers carrying heavy equipment, and having a relationship with your girlfriend over the cell phone. These are all difficult things that anyone who has served in combat can identify with, and every combat soldier knows these things are trivial compared to the true sacrifice which you are prepared to give as a gift so that we can have a country of our own. What stands between Islamic extremist terrorists and mass murder is little children like my nephew." He goes on, "It helps that the people you love are proud of you. It's always fun to hear on the way home, Golanchik," that means little Golan soldier, "come and help yourself to a free falafel ball." But you don't do it for that. In order to survive for 3 years as a combat soldier, you need a much deeper and well thought out reason that you can draw on. No matter what amount of crap you eat, something that allows you to finally fall asleep with mud-filled boots and tell yourself it's worth it. He says, even though I've seen difficult moments, I've never had doubts until now. He says, of course, we need the officers. And you have to understand, in the Israeli army, the officers go first. They say, "Acharai," after me. They follow, the enlisted men follow the officers into combat. He says, the officers are responsible for us. They serve as our mother, our father, our brother. If we mess up, they punish us. But we have to rely on our officers during battle to give orders that could save lives. We also have to trust them to have our backs when we make mistakes. We are human before we are combat soldiers, and there's no one who has never made a mistake. The day Elor's commanders did not have his back was the first day during my service that I seriously considered going into the commander's office, handing him my weapon, and telling him that it was not for me. I'm willing to give everything, and this is how they might abandon me. Am I really going to charge at the enemy in the footsteps of someone who won't have my back if something goes wrong? For 6 months, I've been carrying around these thoughts, and every time I hear something new about the Elor Azaria trial, they return to me. But despite this, I will remain a combat soldier. I will finish my service soon with the bitter knowledge that this could have happened to me or to someone from my team or my company. What can I do about it? Not much. What I can do is be proud of those men who hold our country together and protect us. I can acknowledge that they are truly giving everything in the fullest sense of the word. Thank you, Elora Azaria, for protecting us. That was my nephew's message. That's the letter he wrote me.
Nothing more to be said. Nothing more. Shalom, Nehemiah. Thank you.
Shalom.
Passover 2017 is sold out, but it's not too late to catch all the action online. Get your Watch Online package now, including a special Passover edition of Shabbat Night Live, plus all Saturday sessions featuring Hebrew Roots teachers Bill Cloud, Steve Mutria, and David Robinson, plus radio personality Josh Tolley, creation scientist Kent Hovind, and Michael Rood's famous Seder narrative. Watch live, replay, even download them to keep, all for just $79. Or get the premium package to watch, replay, download, and get it all on DVD or Blu-ray for just $99. Plus, your DVD or Blu-ray package also includes 2 bonus natural health teachings you won't see online, featuring vaccine expert Mary Taka Hovind and naturopathic doctor Scott Laird. You get it all for just $99. Get your Watch Online package now at PassoverCharlotte.com.
The last night that Yeshua was with his disciples, the Last Supper before the Passover was sacrificed, he took bread and he took wine. He said before that Abraham saw his day and rejoiced. But what does that mean? He saw his day and rejoiced. Well, it was the Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, that brought forth bread and wine to Abraham. He blessed the Most High with the blessing that Abraham taught Yitzhak, Yitzhak taught Yaakov, and is still spoken today. Whenever bread and wine is served at a Jewish table, whenever it is Sabbath, especially around the world, the bread and the wine are brought forth with this blessing. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. And Yeshua then said, blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. He said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. This represents my shed blood that pays the sin penalty because of the broken covenant. As often as we do this, we do this in remembrance of him. So break the bread, share the wine, and we do this in remembrance of him until he comes. The last few weeks, I've had the joy of hosting Pastor David Robinson here on Shabbat Night Live. He is the senior pastor of Freedom Hill Community in Missouri, and we are having such a wonderful time together. I asked if he would come back just one more time because there are other things that you know, we get to spend hours and hours and literally days together for a very short amount of time that we get to be on the air. And so many times I wish that we just had the camera rolling so that people could participate in some of the sweetest fellowship and in the in-depth discussions into the scriptures that we have enjoyed together here. And so I've asked David to come back. David, thanks for being back with us in Shabbat Night Live.
Good to see you again, brother.
Well, Freedom Hill community, you are really trying to step back into the faith once delivered to the saints, trying to develop community and not a church, not a congregation as we've known it, because, coming out of churchianity, and you went from small churches and Gilead Baptist Church. I came from, Green Corners Baptist Church. Little churches. Yeah. And you went all the way up into the mega churches, over 5,000 members and all. And in seeing that, we may not know what it's supposed to look like, but we know what it's not supposed to look like, because that's what we've been doing our whole life, that there has to be the power of God, the real life of the Spirit, that real intimacy that people have with the Almighty, and then can minister to each other. And this is what you're developing in that community and working together, everyone working together to that end.
Absolutely. There's not anyone in our congregation that wants to follow the form or template that we've been given in our modern day era of what the church looks like. We don't want to do that anymore, because we've seen how it doesn't work and how it just builds a system with a man at the top, and it just puts so much pressure on that individual that he was never supposed to have, and we set pastors up to fail, and we just don't want to have anything to do with that anymore. And actually, talking to a lot of other pastors, I see that they don't want to have anything to do with that either. So what's the answer? The answer is go back to the beginning. Go back in the book when the church was just formed and look at how they actually did community. And so we are learning. I by no means say that we have this down pat, but I tell you what, if you have a heart to do something and you're united and you all are in agreement and you walk in agreement with each other, you can do anything. And we desire to do that. We desire to be the hands and feet of our Savior, to go and spread the gospel, to feed the sick, to take care of the hungry, or to take care of the sick, to feed the hungry, the orphans, the widows, and take care of ourselves. It even talks about taking care of the brethren. So we actually want to meet the needs of each other. But what you know, and you've seen it, our culture teaches you to be self-sufficient. Our culture teaches us to keep up with the Joneses, and it's even in the church. Because why? We're being conformed to our culture. Our culture's not being conformed to the church, or what God instituted as the church, which is not a building, it's a living organism. Right. Correct. So what we have to do is we have to step back and go, what is wrong? And like you said yesterday, or last week, it was the Reformation. It was the Reformation. We want this is the second Reformation. I think we have a great opportunity in this time and era to change what has gone wrong. We don't all have the answers, but let's try to do it right. How do we do it? We go back to the book. We go back to the book.
We go back to the book and we see, Ananias and Sapphira didn't quite do it right.
No.
I mean, choosing someone to take the place of Judas when Yeshua didn't tell him to do that, that didn't go quite right. We never hear that guy again.
Exactly.
And, there's a lot of mistakes that are made along the way, but, learning to walk by the Spirit and separate our own desires, our own emotions, and separate that from what the Spirit is really saying, that is an ongoing thing. You have to put down yourself and your self-interest in order to even hear the voice of the Spirit.
Absolutely.
And my experience is when the Spirit speaks, I just can't remember ever being comfortable, ever being something that I would want to do.
Right.
So it's like, if you ever hear the Spirit tell you to do something that you want to do, then you better question that Spirit, because it's probably your own or a spirit that's going to lead you down the path of destruction.
That's exactly right. And one thing I learned, and I'm sure many people have, is I cannot walk in the will of God if I'm walking in my will. In other words, I have to be obedient to what God is saying, and I have to be willing to hit my knees and get off my own throne and put Him on the throne and let Him direct my life. Just like Abraham, when He called him out of his land, he left a very, very technological society of that time. I mean, it was not just, they weren't just living in cabins or anything, but he went away to a land that he had never seen or know, because he trusted his Father in heaven. He trusted Yahweh. So that's what happened. I finally came to the end of myself. I come from a very prideful heritage, if you will, sports and everything. You're a winner and you have to win. You have to win. And very competitive. And I came to the end of myself. I had a time in my life where Yahweh enabled me, by me pursuing Him. By me pursuing Him, doors open and you start asking questions, right? So by me pursuing Him, I want to be more like you, I want to be more like you. And He says, well, then get out of your will and get into mine. Just like Abraham to do. When he said, leave and go, get out of your will, go into my will. So I had an opportunity for, Yahweh gave me an experience. I actually was able to see myself as I really was. And I wept. And when He got me out of the way, when I allowed Him to remove who I was on my throne, then I began to see the scriptures better. I began to see, and questions began to come to me. And I knew as I pursued God, there's something greater than what I've been taught. This just doesn't make sense. And one of the greatest questions I had was the 3 days. Yeshua died and was buried and was in the grave 3 days, 3 nights. And how does that happen between Friday and Sunday? That question hit me. And then it was other things. It was the dietary laws and things like that. And I actually came to the conclusion that God knows more than I do. He just is smarter than I am. And as we began to pursue this, and it came through my wife, she, I had to go on this journey of going, God, teach me. Teach me. If I've been wrong all these years, teach me. Show me this.
It's hard for a pastor to do, too. I mean, he's the one that's supposed to have all the answers. And, and honestly, the paycheck doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from keeping the offering plates filled and everyone happy, and
it does.
and promulgating the denomination.
It does. It puts pastors into more of a business mindset than it does into a pastoral mindset. I mean, and it's a shame it's that way, and it's because the system's built wrong. It's just wrong. And, our needs are met. All I care is for our needs to be met, and Yahweh's providing our needs. My
Question
hope and joy.
everything.
Yes.
Question everything.
Absolutely. So, just being on this journey and coming to this place in my life, I've been in this now for going on 6 years. I am a child. I'm still reprogramming my brain from what I've been taught my entire life. You know what I mean? And to be honest with you, it's quite a joy, to see the new revelation, or not new revelations, it's just the word being revealed to me in the way that it was meant to be. So it's just been a joy to do this, and I have questions, and I'm asked questions all the time, and in fact, I want to ask you questions. If we have, can I?
So the pastor's going to ask.
The pastor's going to ask you questions.
The pastor ask instead of ask the pastor. Is that what it is?
Yeah. I mean, if we can. I mean, if that's appropriate. Because look, is that all right?
Yeah. Go fire away.
I get questions all the time. So I don't have answers for them. So what I do then is I go, you know what? I don't know, but let me see if I can find out. And then a lot of times I go online, and I look at websites like Snops, I think it is, Snops.com, Snops, whatever it's called. And I go on there and I go, okay, well, it says it's false. And one of them that just recently that came up, and I want to ask you about this, that there was an email went out. I think I got it. I think many people got it. But it said that they found chariot wheels at the bottom of the Red Sea, okay? Pharaoh's army, was scattered, and there's bones and all this at the bottom of the Red Sea. So I thought, man, that is awesome. That's really cool. Now, did it change anything in my faith? No, it just makes me go, yeah, God. But it doesn't, I already believe. I don't need that. However, there are people that, that helps them to see things like that. Now, then I go on this website and I look it up and it goes, nope, false, not happened. It never happened. That's all, lies, and there's no proof of it. And there's no archaeological discoveries. So I'm asking you, can you shed light on that? Can you actually?
Yeah, well, first of all, when you deal with Snopes, you have to realize, it's just like an editor for an encyclopedia. You're going to get their viewpoint, you're going to get their political views, and I'll tell you, Snopes is really twisted. I'll give you an example. They had a picture of Obama's ring, and and this is a ring that he took off just long enough to hand it to his wife to give it back to him for his wedding ring. And being, living in Israel, and I have Muslim friends. I lived in the old city. There's probably not a street in the old city that I don't know people on.
Wow.
It's like my hometown. And that's why I love bringing people home with me to Israel for my tours. I don't go on a tour. I bring them home with me and introduce them to people that, not because they're all right, but I'll introduce them to Syrian Orthodox priests, Aramaic scholars, Orthodox Jews across the board, because I want them to get to know the viewpoints of different people. Not that they're right, it's just you have to know it in order to be able to communicate with these individuals. And so, I know the Bismillah. It is the most iconic emblem of calligraphy that is done in the Muslim world, which says there is no God but Allah. And that symbol for Allah, which looks like a W, which is on Obama's ring, this is a Muslim ring. They say those are just squiggles. Those are not, that doesn't really say anything. And so it's immediately, no, you people are morons, okay? You're trying to protect this guy that bows to Muslims, that, who grew up as Barry Soetoro, and just like Muhammad Ali, who was Cassius Clay, and Lou Alcindor, who turns into Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when they become Muslims, they change their name to a Muslim name. Barack Hussein Obama, he grew up as Barry Soetoro.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Barry Soetoro is his name.
That.
That's what's on his fake birth certificate. But on this ring, and I'm looking at his Snopes, and they say, yeah, those are just squiggles. And I say, yeah, right. Yeah, that has so much meaning that it's the ring he wears every day before he gets married. It takes it off just for a moment for her to put it back on his finger. This guy's a flaming Muslim. But yet, because this is a political thing, they're going to say that. Now, the other thing, now on Snopes, they say they didn't find Pharaoh's chariots and army strewn on the bottom of the Red Sea.
Right. That's what I just read.
Fools, absolute fools. It was, my goodness, well over 20 years ago that I first saw the first video on this. This is something that was put out by the Prophecy Club, and it was Ron Wyatt, who is an amateur archaeologist, who was doing this presentation, and it was filmed. And when I saw it, it was like the 8th generation. It was a bad quality VHS.
Like 8
yeah, and it actually came from 8 millimeter film,
right.
and then transferred. But I saw it and I thought, this really is compelling. This is great. And where people say, well, I don't need to know that because I already believe. And I say, well, you idiot, your job is to make other believers, make other disciples.
Right.
And if you don't need any evidence, if God has preserved something on earth and you don't need it, that just tells me that you're worthless. You're breathing good air on the planet. Why don't you just check out? You don't need this. God preserved this in the earth and you don't want it. Oh yeah, you are worthless, okay? Go sit in a church pew or something, all right?
All right.
Because we were sent to bear witness and to give a testimony, and sometimes those testimonies, which you see in people's lives, people that were drug abusers, sex offenders, murderers, just the most vile people, and then God enters their life. They turn their life over, and Yeshua takes over their life and immediately changes them from the most disgusting, wretched creature into someone who just desires to live a holy and a righteous and a godly life and just sells it all out for God Almighty. That is a testimony.
It is. It's evidence.
Oh, yeah. And it's because of that people believe. Well, when I saw this evidence, I had to get to the bottom. I had to know. This was not something I was just going to leave, because I thought this is the greatest tool that I've ever had in my life. This bears testimony that these scriptures, these words right here are true. This is what we learn in the Baptist Church. Every word is true. The ones that we don't believe, we just don't read. That's
Right.
That's the
But
Baptist
skip over the
motto.
chapters.
Yeah. We'll read 1 Corinthians 13, but not chapter 12 or 14.
No, you got to skip 14.
Yeah, got to skip that here. No manifestation of the Spirit, no life in the Spirit, just frozen chosen, love each other. So, we know how to play the game, ladies and gentlemen. As pastors, teachers, we know how the denominational game is played. But when I saw this, I said, man, I've got a tool that can wake up the world.
Right.
And so I set out on a course to really dig into this and to find out. And because of that, I was divinely put in place. Jim and Penny Caldwell, they're the oil field engineer, and his wife and family that were stationed in Arabia, northwest Saudi Arabia, the oil fields of Midian, that was their world. And they were the ones that brought out all the evidence over 9 years, the photographic evidence, the artifacts themselves, all this, they came out of Arabia for years, and they actually got to put this video in the hands of Ron Wyatt. And when I was there visiting Ron once, he showed me this video of the split rock. Now, this is something that he didn't see at all. He was there, but didn't see the split rock, which is about 8 miles from Horeb. And he showed this to me, and I said, Ron, where did you get this? Who are these people? And he said, I'll give you the video, but I will not tell you, and I can't tell you who these people are because their lives are in danger.
Okay, wait, let me back up. So you saw the 8mm, the VHS films of it, and it was old and it didn't look really good. So now other people went in and got better pictures.
Right, I'm taking it all the way to Mount Sinai because, I ended up in the home of Ron Wyatt and working on the museum. So I could be there day after day and to be with him because, what I did, you probably appreciate this because I know you're a hunter and to make this trip to see Ron Wyatt, and to go and to work on the museum. That's what I volunteered for. I prayed to God. I want to know, is Ron Wyatt telling the truth? Because I've got a 3-inch binder full of anti-Ron Wyatt literature. People are sending it to me all over. Oh, he's a liar, he's a fraud. And I'm reading this stuff, and it's like, I can see every one of these, they have a bend. And I do the research on the people writing this, and like this one guy, he's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to look for Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat didn't even exist at the time of Noah. It's a 17,000-foot post-flood volcano, and everyone that says they found something brought back, they had all been exposed as frauds before. Bringing back pieces of the ark, and it was a modern piece of wood that was cooked in fruit juice for weeks in an oven, and then they finally admitted that it was a fraud. And so, the world is full of liars and frauds for different reasons, and I had to know, is this true? And so, to make this trip, I had to sell a rifle that I searched for a decade to find. It was a Walther, a beautiful rifle. Took me a year, full restoration, and it's like, this is a treasure. You only get one of these in your lifetime.
Wow.
And I took it to a pawn shop and sold it for $2,000. A pawn shop. When they saw it, they wanted it. And that was like my last treasure in life. And I said, I want one thing. I want to know, is Ron Wyatt, is he telling the truth or is he a liar? And did he find the Ark of the Covenant? And I was given an item, a revelation that he would have to confirm if he found the Ark of the Covenant. And so I went to see him, and that was the beginning of one of the most exciting eras of my life, because when he started giving me this video evidence and said, I can't tell you where it came from, the people's lives were in danger, it was years later that I was lecturing down, I was actually on television, and the evening news down in New Orleans, outside of New Orleans area, and I did an event that night, and it was just jam-packed. It was standing room only. Hundreds and hundreds of people literally standing. And at the end, this couple came up and said, sir, where did you get this video? Where did you get these pictures of Mount Sinai? And I said, well, the archaeologist that was there, he was captured and all of his evidence taken away. He gave it to me, but he said he would not and could not tell me where it came from because the people's lives were in danger. And the man looked at me and smiled and said, sir, that is the right answer because we are the people. We want you to our house for the Sabbath tomorrow, because everything that we have is yours to help get this message out. Wow. Because he knew that I was giving an accurate record of that very thing. And so it was after this point that out of Karolinska Institute, the head marine biologist there, that took the most modern research vessels down there, underwater robotic dive cameras, and literally drives those sleds down in the Red Sea. It's literally a graveyard of Egyptian chariots down there. It's an underwater battlefield of Egyptian chariots that are covered with coral down there, forming the exact image of what was there originally. One of the wheels was taken to the Department of Antiquities in Cairo. Mohammed Nassif Hassan, who was the head of the Department of Antiquities, walked up to the table where this piece of coral was sitting and immediately identified it to what dynasty it was. Because that is the dynasty that had that particular chariot wheel. Immediately recognized it. When I did my series on the Red Sea crossing, I was down at a lot, and I interviewed so many boat captains down there because I wanted to rent a boat in order to tell the story and get out on the Yam Suf, the ancient Red Sea or Yam Suf in Hebrew, and in a boat after another, the captain was showing me photographs of chariot parts down there. Oh yeah, we've been down there several times. They don't let us stop over there anymore.
They won't let them go and look anymore.
Right. And no one can bring up any artifacts from that area.
Why is that? I mean, why?
Because there are gunships that run both ways on that. And this denies the story of Egyptology. See, Egyptology denies that Israel was ever there, that there was ever a pharaoh and his army that went down in the...
So if they go down there and pull this up...
Yeah, right.
Everything they are teaching is a lie.
Right.
It doesn't line up.
All of Egyptology is based on the historical record. It's not really historical. It's a fairy tale made up by Matthew, which... this is at the time that Ptolemy Philadelphus, a Greek general, went in and took Egypt, and also Israel. And he said, I want a history of your people. So what did Israel do? They had 70 rabbis, scholars, take the Torah and translate it into Greek and said, here's our history. What did Egypt do? One Egyptian priest who made up a fairy tale. For 30,000 years, gods ruled Egypt. For another 30,000 years, men and gods ruled Egypt. And then for 30 dynasties, men ruled Egypt. The two oldest copies vary in the names of kings and pharaohs by more than 1,500 name variation. In other words, the Egyptians didn't even bother copying this correctly because they know it's a fairy tale. I mean, a second grader knows this is a fairy tale. 30,000 years gods ruled Egypt. Oh yeah, right. Okay. And Superman and Batman, they're in Mortal Kombat. In other words, the Egyptians don't even treat it, but yet this is what modern Egyptology is based on, and this is what they use to disprove or claim that the Bible isn't true.
Right.
And so when it comes down to this, the Red Sea crossing, the evidence is there. There have been so many people that have been down there. I know the people that have been divers down there, that have been down there. They've handled the parts. Out of Europe, there have been several people on it. So for Snopes, whatever they say about it, there's guys that sit at their computer and have no idea what's going on in the real world. Right. But they have their political agenda, just like saying, oh yeah, these are just squiggles on Obama's ring. That's why I brought it out. They have their political agendas, and don't worry, you're not going to get the truth all the time. You're going to get whatever the political agenda is for that.
Wow. So those things, the reason though, so what you're saying is the reason those things haven't been extracted, the reason that we as the church or the believers don't get to see this evidence firsthand or pictures, or it's on a TV show or anything, is because of the Egyptian government, because they do not want them to extract
as far as bringing up the evidence from it. But the evidence, as far as recorded evidence, it's abundantly available. I did a series on the real Mount Sinai, and the Sinai Connection is what I call it. It's 4.5 hours presenting all the evidence of the chariots on the bottom of the Red Sea, and then taking you to Mount Sinai and showing all the evidence there. Okay. And I'll give you an example. a beautiful example is that Josias, who is the head of the Israeli Department of Antiquities, which is just a code word for the Rockefeller Museum. Rockefeller put all the money into this. When you walk in the front door, you're going to see an artifact, a human artifact from 33,000 years ago, which immediately tells you we're living in a fairy tale world.
Right.
We haven't been here 33,000 years, but this is the fairy tale world that they try to promulgate, evolution and all that. And so Josias refused to look at the physical evidence that was smuggled out of Arabia at nearly the cost of the lives of the people, the video evidence, the high resolution photographs, the satellite photographs of the area, everything that was done. I mean, NASA with James Irwin, the moon astronaut, got involved with this thing as well.
Wow.
And he refused to look at the evidence. He said, Mount Sinai is a literary invention. No one will ever find it. That was his statement.
Without looking at the
Refused
evidence.
to look at the evidence because he said the Bible is a fairy tale. Mount Sinai is a literary invention. It's a fairy tale. Josias is a complete moron. Okay? He's a highly paid political moron. He's a whore. He'll say anything in order to keep the system going that he's a part of. But, that's basically what we find in a lot of pastors. They're just keeping the system going because that's where the paycheck comes from. And they know nothing about the facts of the Bible. They've never studied it. They've studied what it takes to keep their denomination going. And they've learned that, you tell the people, stand up, sit down, put it in a bulletin, exactly what you're supposed to do. This is the time you give your offering. If you've got questions, don't come here. And we don't need your problems. We don't need you asking questions. That's why I'm glad to have a pastor asking me these questions. Hey,
Yeah.
I know I went on for a little bit,
No, it's
but
okay.
they're just telling me that
I got a lot.
I
got a lot of questions. We've got to stop.
Okay, I have to stop here for
plenty
just
of
a minute.
questions later.
Ladies and gentlemen, they make me do this because they tell me that they have to pay the internet bill and the lights and the camera and all of our staff. We have so many staff that have children, and every donation to A Rude Awakening helps to feed hungry children, the children of our staff. Because if you don't give, then their little babies go hungry. No, literally, ladies and gentlemen, it takes a great amount of money to reach out around the world to do this. Broadcast television and internet, what we're doing, it's not free just because you can pay your internet bill, okay? We are freely giving because we are commissioned by Yeshua. He said the gospel of the kingdom that he is preaching. Not some kind of made-up fairy tale gospel. No sloppy agape, greasy grace gospel. No, the one that he was teaching, he said, you make disciples, you teach them what I teach you. That's what we're doing. We are reaching out to you because others have helped us find you. Whenever you're hearing this, you have now got 2 minutes, and I need you on the phone. I need you standing with me because it's now your responsibility to sow seed to reach somebody else who also has a hunger for truth, a hunger for righteousness. If you've been ministered to, then you need to step up and be a part of this. Join us because your reward is on the sea of fire and glass when the smoke clears. 2 minutes, that's all you got. See you then. Okay, so we'll come back. Welcome back. We are with David Robinson, the senior pastor of Freedom Hill Community. And this has really turned into a segment on The Pastor Asked. David, you said you've got
I like
more.
that. I got questions, and because I get hit with these questions all the time. So I love getting other leaders' views or their answers to these questions. And so, I think it's kind of, this is kind of fun. So can we just
Go ahead, fire away.
I got a question too. All right, like I told you, when I came out, when I was in, probably one of the questions after my wife came back and she had all the answers, and I'm sitting there going, what? But one of the things was, I started asking it years ago, but then I went back to it, and it was the 3 days, 3 nights. 3 days, 3 nights. And I think I know the answer to that, but I want to get your answer to that, because it does not make logical sense. If what we teach in the church, especially I know in my Baptist church it's taught this way, he died on Friday and rose on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not 3 days, 3 nights.
Einstein couldn't get 3 days and 3 nights between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And part of the problem comes from this, even though we have the Gospels we have in English, they come from, most of them, the translations came from Greek, but this is not a Greek culture. This is a Hebrew culture that is based on the biblical reckoning of time, the biblical Hebrew calendar that was in place in the temple period. And so, days began at sunset. And so when we read this, we have to understand it from the context of the people who wrote it. That's why I say, let Jews interpret the scriptures the Jews wrote, and we leave plenty of time for the Gentiles to interpret all the scriptures they wrote, which is less than 3 seconds.
Right.
Okay? So the most repeated prophecy in the Gospels, Yeshua says this more than any other thing, that there's going to be one sign and only one sign of his authenticity. One sign that you have the true Messiah. It is the sign of the prophet Jonah. Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the great fish's belly, whale, King James. So he would be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth and raised on the 3rd day. Shaul, Paul also said this, that according to the scriptures, he was in the grave 3 days and 3 nights and raised on the 3rd day. Right. And there's just no way you can get it between Dagon, fish god Friday, and Easter, the Babylonian sex goddess Sunday. Those are 2 high days on the pagan sun god worship calendar. And so, once you try to wrap 3 days and 3 nights around the twist that around pagan holidays, you're going to end up with big trouble. And one of the problems that come up is says that they needed to get those who are on the cross, when they needed to get them down off the cross before sundown, because before the Sabbath.
Right.
Okay? And so we know it's just before Sabbath. Then it says, for that Sabbath was a high Sabbath. Well, any Jew knows what that's talking about, because the day that the Passover lambs are sacrificed, that's a work day. It is the 14th day of the month. They are then put in the oven before sunset, because that sunset is the 15th, and that begins the high Sabbath that begins the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Matzah. And so, and every feast begins with a high Sabbath and ends with a high Sabbath, and it does not matter what day of the week it falls on. If Yom Kippur, for instance, a high Sabbath falls on a Tuesday, it's a Sabbath, it's a high Sabbath.
Absolutely.
And that particular year, at sunset on Wednesday, that began the high Sabbath. Okay. And so we know exactly what year it was. There's no question about it. Once you get rid of the fairy tale that Eusebius invented of the 3.5-year ministry, and that was invented more than 300 years after the resurrection of Yeshua, he came up with this harebrained idea. I mean, it was pure idiocy.
Okay, I want to hear more about this. So let's go there. Okay, so who is he, and what did?
Okay, well, let me first get the 3 days and 3 nights.
All right.
So he's in the grave just before sunset. He's in the grave all Thursday night, because you begin counting at night, and to be raised on the 3rd day means you have to start counting with the night. Right. That's the only way you can do it. It's biblical reckoning of time. He's in the grave all Wednesday night, Thursday night, and all Friday night. He's in the grave all day Thursday, because Wednesday night at sunset, all day Thursday is the high Sabbath. He's in the grave all day Friday and all day on Saturday, the Sabbath, and raised on the Sabbath before sunset, because sunset begins the day of the first fruit fruits and the first fruit offering.
Right.
And so then, after his resurrection, then those others who were in the graves that were marked, they arose and appeared to men in the streets of Jerusalem, and it was done at the time that the priest went over and harvested the 10 standing omer of barley on the side of the Mount of Olives, far away from the crucifixion and the grave of Yeshua. And it was then that Yeshua presented them in the temple in heaven the next morning. That's why the scripture says when the women came to the grave, Miriam first, early the first day of the week, it is still dark, and the grave was empty. When did he get up? The fourth night? No, the third day on the Sabbath. So they come, and the grave's already empty, and she goes to grab him by the feet. He says, don't touch me. I've not yet ascended to my Father in heaven. Then he tells her, go tell my disciples that I now ascend to my Father and their Father, my God and their God, and then to meet me in the Galilee. He, as the high priest, who has been in seclusion, who cannot be touched with hands, and this is part of the temple system, this rehearsal was put in place by David, then he takes those first fruits, who are then presented before the Father's throne in heaven, and that's why in the book of Revelation we have the 24 elders. Ezekiel doesn't see 24 elders. 24 elders are not seen before in the throne room until that. These are not angels. And they're 24 elders. So we have to remember, angels are not dead people. Only in Mormonism do they get that one so messed up, okay? Dead people are dead people. Angels are angels. People never become angels. Angels are messengers. They don't have wings, and as far as we see in the scriptures, they don't even sing.
Right.
And so, we need to get back to what the scripture says on that. So there we have 3 days and 3 nights, and he is raised on the Sabbath, and the next morning he, as the high priest, presents the first fruits in the Father's throne in heaven, is back down on the earth. The other women who bring the burial spices, they are turned away by the angel. He's risen. Yeshua meets them, and it says they take him and grab him by the feet. They're allowed to touch him because he's already been in the Father's throne, already come back down to the earth, and see the whole pictures there in the scripture. But if we do not understand the feast of the Lord as these prophetic shadow pictures that were put in place in the temple liturgy by the prophet David, who saw beforehand the coming of the Messiah, he put these things in place, and Yeshua fulfilled them to the very day, the very hour, the exact moment. And that is the beauty of the first 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, show Yeshua fulfilling the spring feast, all these rehearsals. Then the 5th Gospel, the book of the Revelation, shows the Messiah as the conquering, reigning king, the eternal judge who fulfills the fall feast of the Lord. It is all about the feast of the Lord. And the feast of the Lord are all about Yeshua, the prophet, the promised Messiah.
That's really good. Now, we went back and you told me to let you finish, but you talked about that something was interpreted wrong by...
Eusebius.
Eusebius, yeah. What was that again?
Okay. Where the 3.5-year ministry fabrication came up, where it emerged on the scene, was Eusebius, who was the court bishop of Constantine, the former bishop of Caesarea, right on the coast of Israel. And he was the court bishop of Constantine, and he wrote in his work on the oration and exaltation of the Emperor Constantine. This is, in that work, he wrote, first of all, if we're going to extol the virtues of the Emperor Constantine, we already know that we are extolling the virtues of somebody who is a complete biblical illiterate. He was a worshiper of Mithra, the Roman sun god, who was born on December 25th. He brought in all this Babylonian sun worship and mixed it into his new church-state religion, in which, Christianity became the religion of state by the stroke of a pen, and nobody had to change anything. Instead of praying to Mars, they now are going to pray to Saint Martine. We're just going to change the names a little bit. We're going to keep doing the same thing. Easter, the Babylonian fertility goddess, we're going to have her day as a resurrection. The whole 9 yards. It's just a bastardized version of a religion that's kind of based on the Bible a little bit. Right. That's what the Roman religion is all about. But it was this Eusebius who said that Jesus' ministry was 3.5 years, which is 1/2 of a week. I'm quoting him.
Yeah.
Since when is 3.5 years 1/2 of a week? it immediately tells anyone that's a student of the Bible that he's referring to the prophecy that appears in the 9th chapter of Daniel, the 70-week prophecy, or 77's prophecy, 70 Shavua prophecy. And because it talks about there being 70 weeks, and there's 7 weeks, 62 weeks, after 62 weeks, 1 week in the midst of the week, all these coded things that the angel Gabriel gives him in his simple question, is the 70 years of our exile almost up? That was the question. And the angel was sent back with this cryptic prophecy that is absolutely incredible, that gives us from the day that is recorded in Ezra chapter 7, it's the first day of the first month, in the 7th year of the reign of Artaxerxes. That is the first day of the month of the Aviv. We got the very day in the 7th year of Artaxerxes, which is 457 BCE. We go 7 sevens of years, 49 years, until the Zerubbabel's temple is built. Then we go an additional 62 sevens of years for a total of 69 sevens of years. It brings us to Aviv 127 of the Common Era, the day Yeshua crossed over the Jordan River, and John said, "Behold the Lamb of God, which takes away the sin of the world." Exactly 69 sevens of years, 483 years to the day, and it is recorded in the Scripture, that very thing. So Eusebius, however, he's got to get all of Daniel's prophecy completely fulfilled. Because, remember what Yeshua said, until heaven and earth pass away, one jot, one tittle will not pass away till all is fulfilled. That was his key. He's got to get all Bible prophecy fulfilled. He's got to get all of Daniel's 70 weeks fulfilled. So he's got to have Jesus' ministry's got to be 3.5 years, and he's going to take 3.5 years out of the book of Acts to get it all fulfilled, so that now Constantine can reign from his millennial throne in Rome as the vicar of Christ.
Wow.
That's what it's all about. And the 3.5-year ministry was concocted so that Constantine and his papal successors can be Almighty God upon the earth and wield the sword of judgment and kill millions of people, anyone who does not agree with him, because he is Christ on earth, the vicar of Christ. And if you cross him, if you hold anything in opposition to what he has mandated from the Holy See, you'll be executed. I mean, the Eastern Church was just decimated. They murdered millions of people who refused to follow the Pope. Right. And so that's why we, as Baptists, grew up with a 3.5-year ministry, because we are simply protesting Catholics. Yeah. We just never stepped away from it. Basically, everything we do, in America, you know this. It was illegal in America. If you had your church doors open on Christmas Day, the pastor would be put in jail, right?
Right, yeah. What was it, up 1860s?
Right. I think 1863, right up to there. And it's like, because they knew this is Babylonian sun worship. They knew that this is what we are fleeing Europe. We're getting away from the Pope and the crown who rules by divine right.
Right.
Representation, taxation without representation. Right. You obey my rule because God Almighty put me here. All that nonsense that we've kind of taken that position in the church, haven't we?
Absolutely.
I am the anointed. You have to listen to me. You have to submit to me. Everything I say, don't touch the Lord's anointed. You ain't the Lord's anointed. You're down at the bottom of the heap. You're supposed to be serving everyone else. You're not the king. There's one king. Absolutely. You are dirt compared to him.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And it kind of shows how we have conformed. And this is an example. It was illegal until 1873, right? And then all of a sudden, what happened? 63. And then what happened? What happened?
Well, now we've got a phallic symbol, the penis of Ra, decorated with his gold and silver testicles in front of our churches. Oh, well, after we go under the steeple, which is a phallic symbol.
Right.
This is like, what is the devil's penis doing on top of the building where the body of the Messiah is supposed to meet?
Right.
Why do we have his
genitalia?
Genitalia in front of our churches? Yeah. This is insanity, people. Yeah. It's like, talk about clueless, and this is the generation we're living in now. Where is the call to holiness, righteousness, hating what God hates, loving what he loves, and doing what he said? I don't do these abominations. Keep a feast to me 3 times a year, and I'll tell you how to do it, because they are prophetic shadow pictures of that which is good to come. It'll show you about the Messiah. And so what happens, people read the Gospels, they don't even know that Yeshua's fulfilling the spring feast. They're so clueless.
Right. It's never been
why?
taught.
Because we went to Bible school so that we would learn the Bible. And what did we learn? How to promulgate our religion, which is Babylonian sun worship that we got from Constantine. 3.5-year ministry. What a joke.
I've actually had friends that were actually in Bible school. I had this one very close friend that called me and actually said to me, he goes, I know this is wrong. I know this is wrong, but I go, look, you don't have to agree with it. This was before I came into my, awareness, awakening.
But you already knew that there's
But he's like,
sayings.
and I go, that doesn't make sense, or that just seems wrong. And he's like, but to get my degree, I have to do this. But what happens even then, most of the time is you go ahead and you get your degree, and you just fall into the cattle trough, or the path of everybody else, and you just go.
This is what I wanted to talk about this, because see, coming from an independent Baptist church, the pastor's hired, and if he doesn't kowtow to what the elders say, he is gone.
He's gone.
He is out of there.
Right.
So he has no freedom.
Right.
And so that's good for a reason, because that way, there's a group of people holding him accountable so that heresy doesn't take off.
Absolutely.
But also it keeps the truth from coming out, because they want to hold it and keep everything going, because their grandfather started this, their name is on the pew.
Absolutely.
We want everything to go on the way it always has. Don't stir things up. Whatever their party lines, they hold that. Now we come to what has happened in America. Oh, we don't want to be accountable. We're going to start our own ministry. We're going to have a real passion for truth or whatever, and we're going to get out there and start our own thing, and I'm going to be the king of this thing. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. And, it turns into a person who then builds himself his own Nicolaitan hierarchy by bringing people under him that, if I can convince him that, hey, you come under me and you can be my worship leader, and in a few years you can get a big paycheck and all this stuff, and you start sucking these people into this, and because of their own avarice, they want to get in, and so they keep building him up because they figure how high he is, and he's drawing them up in there, and so it builds this monstrosity until you end up with somebody who's insane, literally insane.
Yeah, I actually ran into this in Tennessee, where we decided to visit, because of our kids, we decided to visit this little church because, we were an hour from where, probably 30 minutes from where we had originally gone to church, and we just wanted to be a part of the community. It was a real small Nazarene church, and we started going there, and what we found out immediately, it was a family church. And, we thought, you know what, you go to church, you get built up, and one of the things I believe is, I love it when people go, you know what, I really feel like God's sending me here. Go. But most people go, well, no, you got to stay here. This is your church. No, we should be training people to go out and to train others and disciple others. And so we thought, we've really been built up, and let's go minister to the local community. So we went to this small church, and we found out really quickly, they like things just like it is. Because it started growing, the youth started, just really igniting and getting excited about, their faith, and then immediately you felt the pinch of like, no, we don't want that. We don't want this, we want that. And then literally at some point, we just finally wiped the dust off our feet and we left. Yeah. Because you hit it right on the head. That's the system. We want things just like we are. And when you come in as a pastor, you have to follow what we desire you to do. You have to do it this way. And we're going to call you out if, the Spirit's leading me in a spiritual way to do this. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that because we don't feel that. So the pastor is governed, why? You said it earlier, his paycheck. He has to do what he's told to do, or otherwise he doesn't get a paycheck. Right. Just the whole system.
And the opposite end, if you build your own kingdom, you can put yourself into an unlimited paycheck.
Absolutely.
And where you can live in $1 million place
We talked about it a couple of weeks ago
etc.
that without accountability, there's got to be accountability, and it can't be employee accountability. It can't be people that are on staff. It can't be people that are paid. It has to be outside accountability. The people that, other than the fact that because of the way our board at Freedom Hill set up, there's that accountability immediately, and there's that oneness of unity, and we make decisions together. Then and I can in doing that, they look at me for the spiritual. I mean, I really feel like the Lord's leading us to do this and so forth, and they listen to me. But we do things together, and that's what it's supposed to be. But for us, my wife and I, Diana, our accountability, personal accountability, is outside of the church. We have people in our lives that are watching us and are telling us exactly what they see, and we run things by them and ask their opinions because we look at them as spiritual mentors. So it's accountability is the key, and we just don't have that anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. So. Any other questions from the pastor here?
Well, you know what?
We've got just a few minutes left.
Just a few minutes. Okay, I got one. Let's see. What was I going to ask you about? Oh, the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount. Now, you hear that the Temple Mount's not really the Temple Mount. Wait, that's really just a Roman army parade ground? Because of the stones, the whole stones being stacked on top of each. Do you have time to go into that? I really want to know this.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Ernst Martin, who is a professor of mine, he came up with this harebrained idea that, I call him an over-literalization. That's where he got into his error. Over-literalization of English text of the Bible. And this is the thing that he concocted. Yeshua said there's not going to be one stone left on top of another. This whole thing is coming down. Speaking of the temple in Jerusalem, this is Matthew chapter 23. He's storming off the Temple Mount just 2 days before Passover after completely the scathing rebuke. You whitewashed sepulchres, you worthless. I mean, it is. At that point, they said before this final message, they said we're not going to take him at Passover. We don't want to cause trouble. Right. After that, no, they're going to kill him, and they're going to do it as fast as they can. All right. Exactly. So he storms off. And he said, "You're not going to see me again till you say Baruch haba b'Shem Yahovah." And he storms off the Temple Mount. His disciples say, "Oh Lord, look at this, fantastic! Isn't that a beautiful cornice up there? Look at the workmanship." He said, "Yeah, boys, it'll take a good look at it because there's not going to be one stone left on another. This whole thing is coming down." They shut their mouths. They didn't say another word till they got all the way over on the side of Mount of Olives, and there are only 3 of them there. Wow. And this is Matthew 24, 3 disciples that get to hear what he talks about here. But this, not one stone left on another, this is what Ernst Martin came up with. Because there's still one stone left on top of another, this can't be the Temple Mount. I say, no, Ernst, that's stupid. This is a retaining wall, okay? Right. This is a retaining wall. The temple, there is not one stone left on another. Literally. Right. In another place, he speaks of Jerusalem, there's not going to be one stone left on another. I can take you to the burnt house, which is a priest's quarters, completely destroyed, but yet there's still stones left on top of another. See, there's a difference between figures of speech. You say the ground is dry, statement of fact. The ground is thirsty. That's a figure of speech. There is no faculty of thirst that the ground has, but it paints a more clear picture. They are figures of speech. There are over 240 figures of speech in the Bible, okay? Well, that one stone left on top of another speaks of utter destruction and desolation, but if to fulfill it, there can't be one stone left on another, then that hasn't even happened yet. Right. So what it is an over-literalization that Ernst Martin got into, and so he says that any place that there's one stone left on top of another, the temple could never have been there. Well, that is one of the most ignorant statements I could believe. I mean, this guy actually taught in Bible school and wrote books, but some of his conclusions were just plain stupid, and that was one of them. And so then he came up with this whole idea that the Temple Mount was actually a Roman parade ground. Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah. And now we've got people in the so-called Hebrew roots movement, and the word movement really belongs in the bathroom on this one. People that have no biblical education at all, no historical background. They go over to Israel on a little visit with a tour guide, and now they think they're a professional because other people are listening to them. People with absolutely no sense and no understanding of the Bible at all go over to Israel Israel and listen to them, and then they start mouthing this same kind of stupidity. But yet we're given the details about the gates. And actually, in the I have on several occasions, I go to the rabbis and I go to the Temple Treasures Institute, and I have corrected them on some of the paintings that are done in here according to the ancient text, and show them that these paintings are wrong, and they've agreed, and they have actually changed some of the paintings that now appear in this book. And because we have details about the gates and the southern steps and different things about the Temple Mount. That was not a Roman parade ground.
Right.
That was the brainstorm of a guy that taught for Ambassador College, and then Ken Klein, who was a football player, picked up on this, and other people that really should not be listened to. They shouldn't even, they shouldn't even be out there talking, because they have no background in the Bible. They've never studied history. They're not historians. They're not Bible scholars. They are just out there and building their own kingdom of idiots. I mean, they're forming the League of Morons out there. And it's very upsetting to see people who will destroy any real historical documentation. As a matter of fact, I took Ernst Martin's book to the head rabbi down the Temple Treasures Institute. I stayed up all night and read it. Someone gave it to me and said, if 1/10 of this is true, it changes everything. I saw him the next morning after staying up all night. I said, "You're right. If 1/10 of this are true, it would change everything. There's not one thing in here that's true. It's all based on a fairy tale of over-literalization of an English text." This guy has no background. He shouldn't even be writing this book.
Doesn't know Hebrew?
No. I took it to the head rabbi, and I said, "What did you think about this book?" And he said, "I wouldn't dignify that with an answer." And then he turned away and did something, and I asked him another question. He turned around and just looked at me. Oh, I get it. You're not going to dignify it with an answer. You're not even going to open your mouth. This is too stupid to even have a conversation about. I agree. I agreed with them. But this is the kind of thing. People have to be very careful, because the Hebrew roots thing is the next cash cow for a lot of people. This is their opportunity to do something new, because they couldn't make it in the old world that they had. Maybe they got sick and tired of their religion in their Baptist church or whatever. And I say Baptist because we were, okay? But yeah, that doesn't give you the right to go in and claim the title rabbi. Right. When you are not. Right. It doesn't give you the authority to steal from other people who have spent their life in this, and you just come on the scene because you decide you want to be famous and teach the Torah, because nobody even knows what the word Torah means. Right. That's what we're dealing with now. And so, I'm not a part of the Hebrew Roots movement. That's a movement that is just full of crazies. Mm-hmm. I think it's time to get back. Let's get back to the faith once delivered to the saints.
That's good.
Hey, I think they told me I ran out of time a long time ago. Thanks for being with us. David, thanks.
It's been a pleasure, brother. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll let the pastor next time. And thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time. Shalom. Peace. Bye-bye.